As the malicious female supporting character, the young lady, I have bound myself to a villain redemption system. However, I suffer from severe misophobia. On the first day I met the villain, I screamed in horror, disgusting, absolutely disgusting. Then, I ordered the butler to scrub the young villain 10 times over. The villain devoured his food, splattering grease everywhere. I shrieked, ordering him to take at least 40 minutes to eat each meal. In this way, I meticulously trained the villain until he was 24, and he finally became a clean villain. Unexpectedly, this little rascal, having been disciplined by me, became even more psychologically twisted and now wanted to force his love upon me. Just as he pinned me to the bed, leaning in to kiss me, I covered his lips. "You haven't brushed your teeth." Finally, the villain's composure broke. He gritted his teeth and thrust forcefully. "My dear young lady is so fond of cleanliness. How about I make you dirty?" The first time I saw Evan, he had just finished a fight and was brought before me by the bodyguards I sent. I looked at Evan in front of me, my body trembling and my shoulders shaking uncontrollably. Evan's face was smeared with dirt, his hair was as messy as a bird's nest, and his pant legs were stained with an unknown yellow liquid. The system told me that before coming here. Evan was in the men's restroom, fighting someone with a mop. My stomach churned. The system in my mind urged me, now is the time, comfort him, embrace him, redeem him. An unidentified brown object on Evan's hair swayed back and forth. I opened my mouth. Wow, I couldn't hold it in any longer and, right in front of Evan, I threw up with a loud, wow. Evan seemed very calm, truly worthy of a great villain's composure, but I am not calm, because I have severe misophobia. I screamed in terror. Filthy, Bob, take him downstairs for a bath, quick, he's disgusting. Wash him 10 times. No sooner had I spoken than I threw up again. After I finished, Lucy thoughtfully handed me a handkerchief, and I weakly wiped my mouth. I looked at the mess on the floor and the muddy patch where Evan had just been standing. I screamed again, unable to stop myself from turning into a stubborn screaming chicken. "It's filthy." Lucy, mop the floor, all the blankets, change them all, change them. Bob thoughtfully took Evan to bathe. Lucy also hurried to start cleaning up. The system is confused, it's getting anxious. "Host, you're here to redeem the villain. How can you dislike him? The villain's favorability towards you just dropped to a negative value." Host. No one responded to it, because I had already passed out. The system probably never expected that it had bound itself to a useless, germophobic host. It wasn't until Lucy and her army of nannies scrubbed the entire villa and changed the carpet 3 times that I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. When the freshly cleaned Evan was brought over, I reflexively felt like vomiting again, but I endured with tenacious willpower. Don't ask, it's the unwavering belief in completing the mission. Even the system couldn't help but praise me. "Host, you're amazing, keep it up, you'll definitely win over the villain." Evan's hair was shaved off, and he was glaring at me with resentment. "Because I believe his head has already been contaminated. This is an extreme act of contempt and insult toward me. A severe germaphobe, in my house, the Scott residence. Even the ants must be so clean they shine. If I could, I'd even want to take Evan's head off and wash it clean, but that's too bloody, so I can only imagine it." I looked at Evan's shiny, reflective bald head and smiled with satisfaction, but he was furious, completely red-hot, his face and neck flushed as he angrily cursed at me. "Julia Scott, are you fucking insane?" I was furious. "Don't use foul language. It's uncivilized behavior." Evan laughed in frustration, lifting his pant leg to reveal his reddened but smooth calf from excessive scrubbing. "You're so civilized enough to kidnap me here and shave off all my hair. You're a pervert." Oh, no wonder he was screaming so terribly in the bathroom just now. This filthy human, completely ungrateful. I helped him cleanse his body full of filth, and he actually cursed me. People like this would be scorned by the germaphobe young lady. I put my hands on my hips and retorted, "You're talking nonsense. I clearly left some hair. I didn't shave it all off." Evan turned red from head to toe, like a cooked shrimp, so angry his tongue tied in knots. You're absolutely shameless." I snorted and crossed my arms. "Insult me again, and I'll shave off your eyebrows too." So it was the eyebrows that were left. Somehow, Evan's face turned even redder. The system screamed, "Host, you're here to redeem the villain. But you've almost made him furious. Hurry up and soothe him." If the mission fails, both you and I will be thrown into the pigsty. What? My vision went black. This system is so ruthless, actually imposing such a severe punishment on me, I gasped in shock. Meanwhile, Evan coldly said to me, I want to go home. The system hurriedly said to me, host, you can't let him go back. If he goes back, his gambler father will beat and scold him, force him to hand over his scholarship, and finally sell him to northern Myanmar, where he'll eventually become a powerful figure in northern Myanmar, and will be thrown into a pigsty. Damn the plot, it's actually this terrifying. My fingers tightened around the luxurious agarwood chair as I forced a stiff smile, trying my best to appear more amiable. Evan, I mean no harm, I've already spoken with your father. From now on, you'll be my father's adopted son, the nominal second young master of the Scott family, with no ties to your biological father. At this point, I let out a sinister laugh. Man, you belong to me, and no filth shall ever taint you. The minor villain must be utterly shocked by my imposing presence. Haha, after all, the system mentioned that I was originally a vicious villain in the storyline. As a villain, one must exude an overwhelming aura. System, you're just a malicious cannon fodder, because the female lead accidentally spilled a cup of coffee on you. You vomited on the spot. The male lead thought you looked down on her, and he made sure you suffered until the Chin family fell. Me, shut up, can't you see I'm showing off? Evan stiffened for a moment, unable to believe it. Had he really escaped that beast's control so easily? He couldn't help but ask, how did you convince Sam? What do you want by tying me up? His father was, of course, difficult to deal with. The system wants me to give him a sum of money, but I'm the villainess. How could I just give money to someone for no reason? I'd just send them straight to northern Myanmar. I gave a faint smile and said in a perverted tone, I want you to be my little dog. The puppy's task is to ensure the young lady stays clean and tidy at school every day. But Evan, this puppy, isn't very clean himself. At the dining table, I elegantly tie my napkin, gently pick up my utensils, and am just about to start eating. Evan, sitting across from me, has already begun devouring his food ravenously. I watched him devour the food in front of him like a whirlwind. Grease splattered on his lapel, sauce stained his mouth, and occasionally a grain or two of white rice clung to his lips. I knew Evan was thin and malnourished, so it was understandable that he'd be a bit overeager when faced with good food, but this was just too messy. I was on the verge of a breakdown, my stomach churning again. I slammed my hand on the table, stood up, and shrieked, it's so dirty, so dirty. Evan, how can you eat so sloppily? Evan, full and satisfied, looked at me with a defiant expression. This is how I eat. A delicate young lady like you, of course, wouldn't know what it feels like to not know where your next meal is coming from. If you think I'm dirty, then send me away. I blacked out. Why is a teenage villain such a rebellious youth? The system quickly comforted me. Host, the villain is just not adapting to the new environment. He thinks you're definitely tricking him, that you'll send him away once you're tired of him. He just lacks a sense of security. Please be the bigger person and forgive him, otherwise we'll be thrown into the pigsty. My anger was extinguished as if by a bucket of cold water. A pigsty? Horrifying. Absolutely not. I swallowed my pride and angrily ordered him, from now on, you must take 40 minutes to eat each meal. If it's less than 40 minutes, I'll punish you. Evan scoffed lightly, unconcerned. Pretentious. Evan soon behaved himself. At dinner, he still did as he pleased. I sneered, Bob, Lucy, present, they answered crisply, immediately understanding my look. Immediately after, Evan was tied up in a chair. He struggled, Julia Scott, what are you doing, you crazy woman? It's better to shut that dead mouth. I slowly and deliberately fed him by hand, little by little, waiting until he had completely swallowed before I would slowly feed him the next bite. You little rascal, I'll have you eating out of the palm of my hand. Evan's face flushed red as he ate the food I fed him, bite by bite. I let out a wicked cackle. Remember this, from now on, if you ever take less than 40 minutes to eat, I'll personally feed you until you're done. I wonder if Evan has some kind of problem. His ears were so red they looked like they were bleeding. After the meal, he became much more compliant. He touched the red mark on his wrist and looked at me with pleading eyes. If it goes over 40 minutes, can you feed me too? The system was dumbfounded. Host, why are you rewarding him? There were a few troublemakers in Evan's previous class who came from influential families, but I didn't let them off easy. I had someone dump a bucket of sewage on each of them and then beat them up with a sack over their heads. I had my dad handle the paperwork to transfer Evan to my class. Coincidentally, I've always felt the school was dirty, so of course, my little dog should help the young lady clean up, of course. We can't let Evan go with a bald head, how embarrassing. I prepared a wig for him and put it on him myself. I raised my chin to look at my handiwork and smiled with satisfaction. Handsome, indeed, the young lady's little dog must be bright and shiny. Evan looked at me with deep resentment. Sigh, it's just hair, right? It'll grow back, every day. I would arrogantly order Evan to wipe the table I was about to sit at inside and out with a brand new cloth before I could sit down with peace of mind. Evan was initially quite displeased, but eventually grew accustomed to it. He even started spraying my favorite cedar perfume on the chair. The system timidly said from behind me, "Host, we're here to redeem the villain, not to boss him around like a slave." I comfortably sipped the fruit tea Evan bought, my eyes narrowing in contentment. Isn't he quite happy now? I've cleaned him up so nicely, given him food and clothes, and even shared half of my pocket money with him. However I rank among women, that's how he ranks among men. The silly system scratched its head. This direction doesn't seem right, does it? But seeing the steadily rising favorability and villain happiness values, it shut up again. I closed my eyes to rest. This system is not smart at all. It's silly. It didn't notice at all that I've completely tamed the villain into my underling. From now on, I am Qin Feng Out Yen Jia. Ha 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 ha. But now, an extremely tricky situation has arisen. Looking at Evan's 89-point English test paper and comparing it with my own 148-point score, a vein on my temple twitched violently, then he sharply rapped him on the head. "This is English, such an easy subject, and you failed." He scored 147 in math, which is like a foreign language to him, but failed in English, which is so simple. Did Evan even study seriously? My tongue tied in a knot from anger, and I fiercely yelled at him. "I scored 148 on my English exam. How do you think you're worthy of me? How can someone who failed English be worthy of being my subordinate? I'd even be disgusted if you were my dog." Evan had no idea what was going on. His face turned red again. Was he a monkey's but in his past life? Why is it always red? He awkwardly lowered his head, tugged at the corner of his clothes, and spoke in a voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz. "So, that's what you think, me, huh?" Evan's wet eyes stared at me, making me a little uncomfortable. Ever since he realized I really wouldn't send him back, he'd calmed down a lot, not as rebellious as before. Evan blinked, his voice hoarse as he said, "Miss, if I study hard, could you give me a little reward? This kid, he's learned to bargain with me now." I rested my chin on my hand, looking at him lazily. "What do you want? The distance between us is very close. I just changed my shampoo yesterday. It has a light gardenia scent, and the ends of my hair nearly brushed against the boy's cheek." The boy's gaze traced the outline of my features inch by inch. Evan's eyes were momentarily dazed, his Adam's apple bobbing. The next second, I grabbed his ear. "You don't study hard but you want a reward. Let me tell you, if you don't score above 100 in English next time, you'll wash my skirts for a week." Evan's eyes suddenly lit up, and his voice rose. "Great." He agreed faster than my mom's ex-boyfriend. Meanwhile, the system scratched its head on its own, muttering, "Strange. Why has the favorability increased again?" People in the class often gossip about me behind my back. Because of my severe mysophobia, some people look down on me, and I look down on them too. My mom loves cleanliness, and I inherited that from her. What's wrong with being a bit of a clean freak? I'm just a girl who loves cleanliness. Until the jock in my class started pursuing me. I know him, Leo, the son of the CEO of my dad's partner company. Because his grades weren't very good, and he had some athletic talent, he became a sports specialist. I don't like him. Every time he finishes playing basketball, he'll grin at me, all sweaty and greasy, flicking sweat my way, and even give me a wink. If Evan hadn't always stood in front of me, I really would have thrown up. That day, after training, Leo casually tossed his sweaty towel onto my desk, gave a wicked smile, and with a bubbly voice that sounded like his flip-flops were stuck, said, "Miss Scott, does your brother have that manly scent?" I couldn't hold it in. He vomited with a loud retch. To save face, I vomited into the trash can. Dirty, so dirty, so dirty, so dirty, so dirty. Leo's face instantly darkened. Julia Scott, what are you pretending to be so pure for? Do you really think of the school as your own home? Can't you rein in your spoiled princess temper? He didn't finish his sentence before Evan punched him in the face. Ever since I brought Evan home, I've had him train in combat with the bodyguards. His skills are far beyond Leo's superficial abilities. Evan landed punch after punch, then shoved his sweat-soaked towel directly into Leo's mouth, his eyes filled with a ferocity I'd never seen before. I personally wipe the young lady's desk every day. Who do you think you are? In that moment, he truly resembled the ruthless leader from northern Myanmar described in the original book. Leo sobbed, his neck stiff. What do you think you are? You're just Julia Scott's dog. My dad said I'm the one who's going to marry Julia Scott in the future. You'd better not meddle in this. Damn it. Looking for death, Evan grabbed him by the hair and slammed him hard onto the ground. The people around screamed in terror and quickly ran to find a teacher. The system shrieked in my ear. Holy crap. Host, quickly control the villain. His blackening value is skyrocketing. If he keeps fighting, someone will die. It'll be hard to explain to the police. My stomach churned with nausea, my eyes stung, and I weakly called out, Evan, I don't feel well. The boy's punching motion paused, and he ran over in a hurry. Halfway there, he remembered something, pulled a clean handkerchief from his pocket, meticulously wiped his hands until they were raw, and then came to hug me. Because I had just vomited, the capillaries on my face had burst, and my complexion looked very poor. Evan's eyes were full of panic and distress. He pulled out a new handkerchief to wipe my mouth clean, patted my back, and said in a hoarse voice, Miss, I'm here. Leo was forced to transfer schools. What a joke. I, a dignified member of Kyoto's Scott family, and that Lincoln, a mere upstart, dares to covet me. I just made one phone call to my mom, and my dad personally came to the school. My father, though middle-aged, had lost none of his vigor, and years of experience in the business world had taught him to conceal his emotions. My father raised his eyes, a faint, unreadable smile playing on his lips. You think I'm marrying Shao Jia off for an alliance? His voice, though not angry, carried an inherent authority. The principal didn't dare to breathe. Leo's father, even more, was shaking like a leaf, frantically shaking his head. Misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding, my dad sneered. He stood up, his 188-meter height commanding attention, and said in a very nonchalant voice, It's getting cold. It's time to make the Lin family bankrupt. Leo's father immediately collapsed to the ground, drained of all strength. He went up and grabbed Leo by the collar, slapped him twice, and said fiercely, How could I have given birth to such an unfilial son? As the words fell, overwhelmed with rage, his eyes rolled back, and he fainted dead away. The scene descended into chaos, after seeing Leo and his father off. The principal took out a handkerchief to wipe his sweat and said with an ingratiating smile, Mr. Scott, I'm truly sorry that Miss Cheen had to endure so much distress here. Please rest assured, such a thing will never happen again. My father's expression softened considerably. I hope so, the principal asked cautiously. Then, those two teaching buildings. My dad waved his hand. What's supposed to be there will be there. The smile on the principal's face grew even wider. Before leaving, my dad gave Evan a meaningful look and raised an eyebrow. You did a great job. Evan, who had been a bit nervous, relaxed when he heard my dad say that. It's what I should do. My dad flicked my forehead. You really outdid yourself, Julia, adopting a son behind my back. I whined, Dad, one more person eating at home won't cost much. Look, hasn't he protected me really well? My dad smiled helplessly. All right, as long as my daughter is happy, after everything was handled. I returned home exhausted and collapsed onto my soft, large bed. I don't live with my parents. They found me disruptive to their two-person world, so they simply bought me a villa close to the school. I lazily let Evan take off my shoes. You look quite handsome today. I genuinely complimented him. Evan had grown increasingly handsome over the past 2 years, with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, almost as tall as my dad. Most importantly, his hair had grown back. And I had nurtured him into a radiant person. His personality is also increasingly to my liking. The child has truly become sensible. I didn't hear the system's faint sigh. the promised redemption, what has it turned the villain into? Evan's cheeks flushed slightly from my praise. The whole person felt a bit lightheaded, and his speech was somewhat stuttered. As long as I can protect the young lady, that's good, TSK. I still prefer the unruly look he had when he used to call me a crazy woman. Then, remembering something, I put on a stern face. However, even if you protect me, I will still strictly supervise your English. Do you know what you scored last time? 99. Just 1 point shy of avoiding punishment. Now, you'll have to hand wash my skirts for a week. I tilted my head up proudly. Heh 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 heh. Now you know how terrifying I can be. Look at Evan, so upset that his face turned red. His voice even started to bluster, and he responded loudly, great. However, I think Evan did help me after all. Should I give him some reward then? But what should I give? Whether it's food, clothing, or daily necessities, Evan is now at the same level as me. I fell into deep thought. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of the bear plushie on my bed. A thought sparked in my mind. I scurried over, pointed at the bear plushie, and said to Evan, this bear was custom-made by a master my mom commissioned abroad. It has sleep-inducing properties and smells lovely. If you score 130 on your English exam, I'll give it to you as a reward. How about that? I added, this is my favorite thing. Evan froze. Somehow, an unreadable look flickered in his eyes. He looked at the large pink bear on the bed, his voice a little hoarse. Miss, do you know what you're doing right now? I blinked my eyes. I want to reward you. Why did Evan suddenly become stupid? Don't you like my reward? I was a little troubled. Don't you like it? Then I'll change it. I like you. Evan interrupted me directly, a pair of bright eyes, shimmering with scattered starlight. He took out a handkerchief to wipe his hands, then carefully touched the pink teddy bear. I proudly put my hands on my hips. How about it? Isn't my teddy bear beautiful? Evan couldn't help but let a smile play on his lips. He asked, Miss, do you really want me to study hard? I replied without hesitation, if you don't study hard, how can you get into the same university as me? Although my math is pretty bad, only scoring around 120, it's still better than Evan's English. Wait, Evan wouldn't not want to go to the same university as me, would he? Then how can I redeem him? How can I complete the mission? Am I going to be thrown into the pigsty? At this thought, I was greatly alarmed. Evan, I'm telling you. In this life, you are my puppy when alive, and my little ghost dog when dead. In short, you are never allowed to leave me for the rest of your life. The boy's cheeks flushed with a faint pink, like a ripe peach, beneath lies sweet juice. I heard him say, okay, time flies by. In the blink of an eye, Evan and I were admitted to the same top university in the capital. On the night of graduation, I drank alcohol for the first time. I got completely drunk. When people are drunk, they can't help but talk nonsense. I drunkenly hugged Evan, pinching his face. Evan, do you know how rebellious you were at first? You were a rebellious little dirty dog. Look how clean you are now. Aren't you very happy to be a clean little dog? I nestled into Evan's arms, mumbling. Evan's Adam's apple bobbed, his eyes flickering, very happy. My head was spinning, and I started to babble. You must always be happy, otherwise, I'll be thrown into the pigsty. Evan was about to carry me to the bedroom, then chuckled. Who would dare throw the young lady? My brain froze, and I blurted out, of course, it's the system. It said if I don't redeem you, you'll be sold to northern Myanmar and become a big villain, and then both it and I will be thrown into a pigsty. I don't want to be thrown into a pigsty, so I came to save you. So you must be well. I hate dirty places the most. At that moment, I had no idea I had just revealed such a shocking secret. Evan's entire body suddenly turned ice cold, his burning heart as if doused with a bucket of icy water, covered in frost. A chilling aura enveloped him, his eyelashes trembled slightly, his voice soft yet unusually solemn. Julia Scott, what you said, is it true? Meanwhile, I had already frowned and rolled over. Evan, I'm so dirty, quickly help me bathe. However, the person paid no attention, just stood there with red eyes, looking exactly like a discarded puppy. I was a little impatient. Evan, I'm filthy, take me to the shower, quickly. I didn't know his sharp nails were digging deep into his palms, blood dripping onto the floor. He gave a self-deprecating laugh, his molars almost ground to dust. Julia Scott, you're something else. Then he threw me onto the bed, turned around, and left without a shred of mercy. How could I bear being this dirty? Why isn't Evan listening to me? I was a bit angry, staggering to my feet. I then fell to the ground with a thud. I was in so much pain that my voice broke with a sob. Evan, I don't like you anymore, bad puppy. The man walking away paused in his steps, looking at me lying on the ground. He finally turned back and sighed softly. I'll go get Lucy. That night, I indeed drifted into a clean and peaceful sleep. I'm someone who blacks out when I drink. After getting drunk, I forget everything and continue to interact with Evan as usual. I don't know what happened. But Evan's gaze towards me became increasingly strange. Before, it was tolerant and restrained. Now, however, there was an added hint of possessiveness and paranoia. I was completely bewildered. Yet, Evan treated me exactly the same as before. At university, he still thoughtfully helped me wipe down my desk and chair. It was just when he washed my clothes that he started to look stern, as if he wanted to scrub them to pieces. I asked the system what was wrong with him. The system remained silent for a long time, then finally spoke in a somewhat stiff tone, as if someone had stabbed it in the back. Host, you think about it yourself. Why is even the silly system starting to speak in riddles? I'm confused, so I'll just let it be. 4 years of college quickly passed. At my insistence, Evan joined my dad's company. Initially, my dad gave him a struggling subsidiary, unexpectedly. This guy actually had some talent. He revitalized that small company, and its market value soared. Within a few years, Evan was promoted step by step to the same position as me, a vice president. I couldn't help but marvel. He truly is the big villain. His business acumen is simply incredible, and he's very clean. Every day, Evan would personally help me clean my office. I only feel at ease in places he has cleaned. As time went on, the main storyline began to advance. The male lead has appeared. I looked at the marriage contract the male lead's family presented to my mother and scoffed. He thinks he can marry me. Can he shower 3 times a day? Do the ants in his house shine? Does he have Evan's talent for cleaning? My mother took a sip of tea. You're at the age to settle down now. Charles is excellent in every way. I've checked, and he's quite clean too. The system murmured a reminder to me. Host, don't believe it. He's already hooked up with the female lead. This marriage proposal was submitted by his parents without his knowledge. Because I was familiar with the plot, I avoided both the female lead, Wendy, and the male lead, Charles, and we had always coexisted peacefully. And by offering advice for my dad's company, my family is now thriving. Even if the male lead wanted to go head-to-head with my family, he'd have to consider his own strength. I said with a straight face, I'm not getting married. My mom put down her teacup and glanced at me. Whether you marry or not is up to you, but have you really fallen for that song boy? You need to think carefully. His background isn't a good match for yours. He does have some ability, but after all, his father's genes are there. We wouldn't feel comfortable marrying you to him. Like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, I jumped up to retort. What are you talking about? How could I possibly like Evan? He's just my dog. Even if all the men in the world died out, I still wouldn't marry Evan, I said, sticking my neck out. Actually, I had no idea what I was doing. Shouting so loudly was definitely a bluff. My heart was in a turmoil. I was only saving Evan for a system task. Do I like Evan? I can't help but wonder. A crisp clang. I turned my head stiffly. Evan picked up the broken porcelain pieces, and his fingertips were pricked. Drawing blood, he calmly said, Sorry, I'll clean it up, turned and left. I instantly panicked and quickly followed him. Evan, wait up. He was walking at a fast pace. I was out of breath, stumbled, and nearly fell. Evan quickly reached out and steadied me. I buried my face in his chest. He had the scent of cedar that I love. Just as I was lost in thought, Evan pushed me away, took out a handkerchief, and meticulously wiped his hands. I widened my eyes. You think I'm dirty? A complete reversal. Evan was expressionless. I learned it from you. He wanted to leave again. I quickly grabbed him. What I just said to my mom wasn't true. I didn't mean it that way. I don't hate you. I was just lying to my mom. Evan's eyes were fixed on me, a cold frost settling between his brows. What did the young lady just say? That even if all the men in the world died, she still wouldn't marry me. A wave of guilt washed over me. Then, he chuckled softly. Now you're saying you were lying to me. Can I interpret that as, The young lady is willing to marry me. I was stunned. Is that how you understand it? I subconsciously shook my head. No, that's not what I meant. Seeing Evan's face turn cold again, I hastily added, I didn't mean what I said just now either. What exactly do you mean? I stomped my foot in anger, feeling a little wronged. Can't you give me some time to think about it? How can I decide on something like this so quickly? Evan's lips curled into a sarcastic smile. He should have known that night, years ago, when he discovered the system. Julia Scott had no heart. Miss, you don't need to consider it. I was never worthy of you. Evan left without a shred of mercy, not even turning his head, leaving me behind, utterly frantic. 3 months have passed since then, and I haven't seen Evan. The puppy has grown up and no longer clings to home. I gloomily picked at my food. Evan is gone, and all my little skirts were washed by Lucy. He even took my teddy bear away. I've lost all appetite and have already lost several pounds from not eating. The system sighed. Host, you're looking haggard. If you really like the villain, go confess, I said dully. I don't want to confess. How could the young lady be the one to lower her head first? It's so embarrassing. I don't want to. Why doesn't Evan confess? He keeps everything bottled up every day. How am I supposed to know what he's thinking? I was so angry I threw down my chopsticks and stopped eating. I admit I do like Evan a little, but he ghosted me for 3 months. This young lady will never forgive Evan, that cold-shouldering little dog. In this lifetime, I buried myself under the covers, quietly shedding tears. Only a few tears had fallen when a handkerchief suddenly covered my mouth and nose. Well, I was kidnapped. When I woke up, I was in a villa. The room was impeccably clean, understated yet luxurious. With soft rugs on the floor, clearly meticulously prepared. Just as I was about to get up, I heard a clinking sound. I looked down. Who tied me up like a dog? Silver chains were wrapped around my wrists and ankles. I tugged, but couldn't pull them free. The door was pushed open. Evan looked down at me from above, his face as cold as frost, ruthless and unfeeling. I was somewhat intimidated by his demeanor, after spending so much time together. I almost forgot that he was the ruthless leader from the original book, the head of the Northern Myanmar faction. The number of people whose kidneys he harvested is countless. I rattled the chain, feigning ferocity. What are you doing? Let me go, Evan, you're biting the hand that feeds you. He suddenly scoffed, pulled out a handkerchief to wipe his hands, and leaned closer. Cold, slender fingers brushed inch by inch across my cheek, causing me to shiver. His pale fingertips slowly moved down my face, resting on my neck, then gently gripping it. Julia Scott, I'd like to ask you, if it weren't for that system, would you have saved me back then? His words struck my ears like a clap of thunder. My alarm bells went off, and I turned my head shakily, pretending to be clueless. I don't understand what you're saying. Evan smiled, pinched my chin, and turned my face back toward him. You forgot. The night the college entrance exam results came out. You got drunk and told me everything. I almost choked. He knew that early. Drinking causes trouble. Drinking causes trouble. Why didn't the system tell me about this? Evan continued to say faintly, that system is also useless. I threatened it a bit, and it got scared and defected. Useless system, useless system. The system is quietly murmuring in my head. If you're not afraid of him, then you go ahead. He's almost shaken the egg yolks in my house into a mess, after the big villain awakened. He turned out to be this terrifying. Evan's fingertips brushed the corner of my lips, his voice hoarse. Miss, what do you want me to do? Years of companionship were just a pretense, and I was merely a tool to complete a task, and after the task is done, you'll abandon me, won't you? At this, he cried out indignantly, Julia, how cruel you are. I've followed you for so long, and you actually want to cast me aside. This. I didn't say I was going to abandon him. Evan really overthinks things. He looked as if he'd suffered some immense shock, and began unbuttoning his shirt, muttering to himself as he did so, since you don't care for my love, then try my hate. Dude, who taught you these Chinibu lines? Where's my sweet little puppy gone? I quickly pressed down on his chest. Wait, listen to me explain. I have to say, a man who's trained in combat for a few years is different. Those 8-pack abs, that perfect V-line, no regrets. Evan wouldn't listen to me. He just pushed me onto the bed and kissed me. I decisively covered his lips. You haven't brushed your teeth. Evan let out a sarcastic laugh. He licked the palm of my hand. I withdrew my hand as if electrocuted, looking at him in horror. Pervert. I instantly felt unclean. But thinking it's Evan, HSS, I can tolerate it a bit. Evan stood up with a cold expression. You'll have to put up with the dirt. Immediately after, he pattered off to brush his teeth. I tugged at the chain. It's long enough for me to reach the bathroom. I pushed open the frosted glass bathroom door. Oh, the little puppy even uses face wash. I hooked my arm around Evan's neck, tugged on his tie, and raised an eyebrow. Want to shower together? Evan's breath hitched. He wrapped his arms around my waist, holding me captive, a hint of desire in his eyes. Julia Scott, do you know what you're saying? I bit his ear. Only when it's clean will it feel comfortable. Evan's pupils dilated in shock. He cupped my hips with both hands, swiftly removed my clothes, and placed me in the bathtub, his voice hoarse. Miss, you started this, tonight, let me dirty you, okay? In the darkness, I stared at the ceiling above, my head swimming. I felt like a duckweed on a lake, rising and falling. Tears welled in the corners of my eyes. And my nails left scratches on Evan's back. Evan, can you hear me? His movements were fierce, and I trembled as I called out his name. The man held my waist tightly, guiding my thighs to wrap firmly around him. I can hear you, I said intermittently. I really do like you. When I took on the mission, it wasn't just because of the system. If you think I have ulterior motives, I'll accept it. I cupped his face and kissed his forehead. You can get revenge on me, but please, don't ignore me. I hate silent treatment the most. I never wanted to speak to you again in my life, but he's my favorite puppy, so I'll reluctantly give him some attention. Evan's body trembled violently, and he slowly kissed away my flowing tears. Sorry, he buried his head in the crook of my neck, as if trying to press me into his very bones and blood, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. That teddy bear was placed under my waist by him, now stained with marks, with the lights off. I was worn out to the point of unfocused eyes, unable to make out his expression. Consciousness gradually climbed one peak after another. The moment I was utterly exhausted, I heard Evan's low voice. Julia Scott, I love you. He'd been holding it in for 7 or 8 years, and he finally said it. I didn't have the energy to deal with him. The person was already asleep. When I woke up the next day, my whole body ached as if it had fallen apart. Fortunately, Evan was more considerate and carried me to bathe afterward. The chains on my wrists and ankles have been removed, leaving only faint red marks. Hiss, so kinky. I suppressed the corner of my mouth, as expected of a 24-year-old man. He's at that age of being as lustful as a wolf or tiger. I came to the living room, where breakfast was already laid out on the dining table. I sat down directly and ate gracefully. After a night of tossing and turning, I was starving. Then I pulled out my phone and called my dad. Hey, Dad, I need to tell you something. Chew, chew, chew. I'm going to marry Evan. Chew, chew, chew. My dad spit out a mouthful of water on the other end. You haven't even dated. How are you getting married? I whined. He's been with me for 7 or 8 years. I have to give him a proper title. I'm going to register our marriage with him tomorrow. Just letting you know. Bye. I hung up the phone. A scent of cedarwood wafted from behind me. The man embraced me from behind. His voice trembled uncontrollably, almost overwhelmed with joy. What you just said, is it true? I glared at him, annoyed. It's fake. I'm actually marrying someone else. Evan tightened his grip around my waist, his voice dangerous. Don't say things like that to provoke me. I hummed a couple of times, suddenly remembering something. How did you threaten the system? Evan blinked and casually pinched. A small point of light ran out of my mind, trembling with fear. I was dumbfounded. They upgraded the villain group without me. Is this how a villain boss is treated? I admit, I'm jealous. Host, save me, the system wailed. I tugged on Evan's sleeve. Maybe we should let it go. It doesn't have any bad intentions. Evan hummed in agreement and pinched my cheek. He kissed me, but then his tone grew more serious as he reconsidered. You like it that much? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How can you be jealous of even the system? Evan lifted a strand of my hair, took a deep sniff at my neck, and was lost in it. I remained silent. Can I say it? He looked like he was high. Evan had a wicked idea. Be gentle with me, young lady, and I'll let it go. My face flushed red. System, I did it all for you. The system was indignant. Host, It was thrown out. Evan was pressing down on me, on the sofa, the carpet, the dining table, in the kitchen. I have to say, this man has incredible stamina. I ran my hand over his lean abs. Tears streaming from the corners of my mouth. It wasn't until I was too exhausted to even lift a finger that Evan, having had his fill, finally let me go. A month passed in blissful ignorance of the world, and Evan was about to go on a business trip. The marriage certificate was already in hand, and the task progress had reached 99%. Evan said he wanted to hire an international master to design the wedding dress before he left. I gave him a big hug and left several red marks on his neck. Evan affectionately ruffled my hair. "Good girl, wait for me to come back, and we'll have our wedding." I nodded happily, but in a novel world, you can't just make promises lightly. As expected, the unexpected happened. I've really been kidnapped. When I woke up, I was in an abandoned factory. Also kidnapped with me was the female lead, Wendy. A man with a scarred face and a fierce expression was holding a knife against my neck. The sharp blade slid across my neck, drawing blood and sending a sharp pain through me. I forced myself to stay calm. "Who are you? Do you want money? My family has plenty. I can give you as much as you want," he sneered. "Miss Scott probably doesn't recognize me," I frantically asked the system in my mind. "Who is he?" The system screamed. "Oh no, host, the plot has been revised. The villain's father, Sam, has become the big boss, and you're in the final segment of the story." I suddenly recalled the original plot. It was Evan, at his wit's end, kidnapping Wendy, and finally Charles rescuing Wendy, leaving Evan without a trace. I took a deep breath. "What do you want to do?" Sam suddenly yanked my hair. My scalp was aching, and he smelled so foul and dirty. I felt like throwing up. He looked like he was going mad. "If you hadn't thrown me into northern Myanmar, would I have lost a kidney, half a lung, an ear, and a cornea? No way. Is he that hard to kill?" Sam, in a frenzy again, held a knife to Wendy. "And you bitch, if it weren't for you and Charles destroying the syndicate, how would I have ended up like this? I'll let that brat Evan and Charles see their most beloved woman die right before their eyes." Wendy, however, seemed very calm. "He won't come. I almost forgot. The male and female leads are having a conflict right now. I don't know if Charles will come, but Evan definitely will." I tremblingly asked the system, "Will Evan die?" The system remained silent. It said, "I won't let any of you die." His domineering demeanor was reassuring, but Evan was already here. Sam showed a malevolent smile. "Good son, after so many years, say, Dad, for me." Evan clenched his fists, his voice calm, trying not to provoke him. "Let Julia Scott go. Whatever you want. Come at me." Sam immediately grabbed me by the neck. A bullet chambered and pressed against my head. My face flushed, and my vision blurred. More importantly, his hands were really dirty. Evan's heart leaped into his throat, his voice trembling. "Don't touch her. I'll do anything you say." Sam sneered coldly. "Kneel down." Evan's knees bent, and he fell to the ground with a thud. I watched, my heart filled with rage, and couldn't hold back my tears. If I had known this would happen, I should have nipped it in the bud back then. "Crawl over here." "Don't," I called out, but Sam tightened his grip, and I couldn't utter a word. His eyes were bloodshot. He had completely lost his mind. Evan moved slowly. Charles also arrived, and he immediately spotted Wendy tied up. Sam released his grip on me and turned his attention to Wendy, his gun pressed against Wendy's head. He stared at Charles. "Crawl over here with him, or both of you will die." Charles's face was grim, but he still bent down. Wendy's face showed a hint of emotion. Sam laughed maniacally. "Two fools, actually willing to endure such humiliation for a woman." He casually tossed the knife over. "If you two are willing to end yourselves, I'll let them go. Who's first?" Evan slowly picked up the dagger. My eyes were red. "Evan, if you dare to do this, I'll hate you forever." I secretly used the small knife the system had just given me to saw at the rope. "Damn knife, hurry up." Evan had already pointed the knife at his own chest. He apologized guiltily. "Miss, I'm the one who dragged you into this." "Evan, you big dummy, you're really willing to die for me." Tears streamed down my face, my hands behind my back almost sparking from friction. Finally, just as the knife was about to pierce his chest, the rope snapped. Sam was still laughing maniacally, oblivious, when I plunged the knife into his neck. "You stupid asshole, die." Sam cried out in pain. The gun in his hand flying away, I quickly snatched it. He tried to pull a new gun from his pocket, but I had already pulled the trigger. Bang 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 bang. 8 shots fired in quick succession, all 8 bullets discharged. Sam lay on the ground, eyes wide open, unable to rest in peace. I collapsed onto the ground, exhausted, landing steadily in Evan's arms. He held me tightly. With the joy of having found something he thought was lost, Evan was crying. I stroked his fuzzy head. Don't cry, you forgot to wipe your hands before hugging me, you just crawled on the floor. I'm disgusted. Evan cried even harder, apologizing to me repeatedly. I'm sorry, it wasn't his fault. Few who are sent to northern Myanmar come back alive. The power of the plot is still too strong, terrifying. I held him, kissing his lips, tasting of tears, salty. All right, I won't be disgusted with you this time. The system was teary-eyed. Finally, I can complete the mission successfully. The story ended perfectly. Charles and Wendy have achieved a happy ending. I inherited the company, while Evan started his own business and built a vast new commercial empire. Evan and I will be married in 3 months. On that day, I wore a top-tier luxury wedding gown designed by an international designer commissioned by Evan, and made a grand entrance. Walking slowly toward my groom, the system found a stray dog body, named Yellow, to be our witness dog, on the wedding night. Evan pulled out a box of ultra-thin 001, and I took out bunny ears, a tail, a belt, and a maid outfit, looking shy. Honey, come on. Evan's face flushed bright red, obediently letting me have my way. The bed shook all night that day. Yellow was sobbing outside the door with a handkerchief. My CP finally got a happy ending. Side story. Previous life B. The first time Evan saw Julia Scott was when she was brought in, tied up. The people below didn't know any better and had kidnapped a young lady from a prominent family. Evan didn't want to offend the Scott family, so he waved his hand, intending to send her back. Unfortunately, Julia Scott was too much to handle, screaming about how this was dirty, that was dirty, finding fault with everything. Evan couldn't take it anymore. Did this young lady think she was here on vacation, a Scott family? So what if they were offended? Evan furiously dragged her into his room, gripped her chin, and said sinisterly, everyone who comes to me has to lose a finger on their first day. Tell me, which one will you lose first? He had just killed someone, and the scent of blood still clung to him. Julia Scott asked, did you wash your hands? Julia Scott threw up. She threw up all over him. Evan was bewildered. He looked at himself doubtfully, unable to help but wonder, was he really that dirty? It turns out Julia Scott has severe mysophobia. Evan thought for a moment and gave her the best, largest, and cleanest room. Now the young lady should settle down. Unexpectedly, the young lady still found fault during the meal. She found his eating habits messy. Evan's forehead twitched, but he ultimately held back. He would just change. The more Evan indulged her, the more Julia Scott took advantage. Finally, after Evan killed someone again and was scorned by Julia Scott, he snapped. That day, he pressed the gun barrel against Julia Scott's head, uttering cold words. This isn't a place for your whims, know your place. Actually, the gun was empty. He just wanted to scare her. But Julia Scott was angry. She left alone before the Scotts even arrived. Evan thought he'd finally get some peace and quiet after she left, but instead, he became even more agitated. Closing his eyes, all he could see was Julia Scott being bullied, her whole body filthy. Finally, he let out a long sigh. 2 hours after Julia Scott left, Evan put on his coat and took his gun to find her. Just as he opened the door, Evan looked down. Julia Scott was squatting on the ground about 10 meters from the gate, drawing circles with reddened eyes, as if she had just been crying. Evan's first reaction was relief. Thankfully she hadn't gone far. He carried her back. Forget it, it's just a cleanliness obsession. He could tolerate it. The once ruthless leader from northern Myanmar began, with a cold expression, to hand-wash Julia Scott's clothes. Anyway, she would be leaving in a while, he thought. Gradually, Evan didn't want Julia Scott to leave. Who else would be so willing to serve the young lady besides him, given how much trouble she causes? Julia Scott came across a stray dog named Yellow. She found it dirty, so she left it to Evan to take care of. Yellow licked Evan's handsome face, barking excitedly. This is getting more and more out of hand. Evan thought expressionlessly. Julia Scott was more than happy to take care of Yellow, provided it stayed clean, so, Evan would often help Yellow take baths, and Julia Scott fed him premium dog food every day. Yellow went from being a stray dog to a noble little pup, but a bird that has strayed away will always return home. The night before Julia Scott left, she found Evan with red eyes and spoke with difficulty. "Evan, will you come with me?" Evan was silent. He wiped his hands with a handkerchief before daring to touch Julia Scott's face. He said, "Julia, there's no turning back for me." From the very first day he arrived here, he either crushed others or was crushed by them. The sins on Evan are too numerous to count. Julia Scott kissed him. That night, Drywood met fierce fire, and the dormant beast lost control. Julia Scott cried and said, "Evan, I actually knew you a long time ago." After she left, Evan realized they had been high school classmates. Evan caressed the photo of the youthful girl, smiling through his tears, destined to meet, but not to be together. Months later, Evan received news of Julia Scott and Charles's marriage. This is for the best. She goes her way, and he goes his. He couldn't hold her back. Yellow was whimpering on the side, as the person and the dog hugged each other and cried bitterly. Later, as the plot progressed, Evan found himself at the end of his rope. He discovered that Charles and Wendy were entangled in a complicated relationship, so he kidnapped Wendy. But Evan didn't expect that not only Charles would come, but also Julia Scott. His unworthiness and baseness were all brutally laid bare, exposed before the woman he loved. Wendy, Julia Scott walked towards him, step by step. The spoiled and willful young lady, her eyes red, said, "Evan, you're so dirty now." Then the sharp dagger pierced his chest. Evan smiled. To die by her hand, that was good, but the next moment, the young lady plunged the knife into herself. Evan had never felt so hopeless before. "You're just a fool, a fool." Julia Scott wiped away his tears and said softly, "If only I could have saved you back then." She furrowed her pretty brows, her voice tearful. "Evan, I'm in so much pain." When Yellow arrived, whimpering, it only saw the two lifeless bodies. It wagged its tail, barking helplessly. It has become a stray dog again. Finally, Yellow looked around and bumped into a pillar. Yellow was very lucky. It got bound by the System Bureau. The System Bureau said that as long as it completes 1,000 tasks, it will receive a reward. Yellow works hard every day, staying up so late that even his fur has lost its shine. After countless years, Yellow finally earned the title of model worker in the system realm, and time was rewound back to Julia Scott High School. He was so excited that he howled, "Host, let's hurry and save the villain, otherwise, you're going to be thrown into the pigsty." At night, Evan got up and kissed Julia Scott's forehead. Julia Scott turned over. "What are you doing instead of sleeping?" He held her and chuckled. "I just had a dream." Julia Scott continued to sleep. Evan got up and added a chicken drumstick to Yellow's dog bowl. He said, "Thank you." Yellow whined, "My CP. I'll protect it myself." After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.